Good evening, friends. This is April with Clear Path for Veterans New England. How are you doing this evening? We're really excited. This is actually, believe it or not, we've been doing this series since November, and tonight is the last in kind of the recap of our Thrive series that we've been doing on PTS. And I'm really excited to kind of have wrap up and share all of the wonderful skills that all of my friends here have been teaching. We've had some really great guests come on board throughout our time together. And we're really excited that you're here. If you are catching the replay or if you are here live, please do feel free to leave a comment, ask a question. We are here to help you. And if you are catching the replay, definitely leave a question because we're happy to get back to you. So I'm going to start off and talk, kind of do some introductions, and we're going to get into the meat of everything of our conversation. So these are all Clear Path employees, and we also have volunteers. Brendan Bergal, we have Michael Mullen, and we have Kelly Radcliffe. Hello, friends. How are you this evening?
Hello.
Good.
Hello.
Hi. Awesome. So boy, guys, we've talked about a lot of different things over the course of really, November. Like we're like 6 months out here. We talked about, with our PTS, we've talked about symptoms, kind of really statistics of where PTS lies. We've talked about trauma in the military family. We've talked about mindfulness with PTS. We actually had one of our very own come on and teach us some great skills and tips for mindfulness. We've had coping strategies, communication strategies, and we're like resources. There's so many different things we've talked about. So I know tonight is going to be kind of a wrap up of kind of the top things that we want our veterans and their families to take away. So I'm going to start with you, Michael, and I'm going to have you start at the top where you want to take it away and kind of talking about where our series is going to end tonight.
All right. Thank you, April. So I'm Michael Mullen. And before we get into any of the meat of today's conversation, I want to underscore that what we've been doing throughout this workshop and what we're going to be covering today is just an additional tool for addressing PTS. For anybody out there who is dealing with PTS, we strongly suggest that you work with a qualified licensed mental health clinician, and you just consider these things that we're covering as little tools to keep in the toolbox when needed. These aren't a cure-all. But going back to the start, we're going to look at PTS itself, just what it is, like what we're talking about. So PTS, post-traumatic stress, we're shying away from post-traumatic stress disorder because what we see this as is not a disorder, but more of a natural reaction to a unnatural situation. And there is nothing at all wrong or
abnormal about the responses you're having.
Broken.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And when we're talking about those responses, you could look at, PTSD, DSM-5, diagnostic criteria symptoms. You could look at things like avoidance, trying to avoid anything that brings you back to that moment, anything that is connected to it. If you were overseas and you were driving in a convoy and you were hit by an IED, you might have issues or difficulty driving when you get back homeside, going under underpasses, stuff like that. Avoiding those kinds of situations, though they were a adaptable and pragmatic response to being overseas.
Or anything.
Really, anything,
Or any other traumatic experience you may have experienced while you're in the service as well, so.
I think, guys, before we kind of get deeper into the conversation, I think it's important for you to share a little bit about yourselves and your background, because one of the most important things is that you can relate to a lot of our discussions over the past 6 months. And I think that's really important because, I am a civilian and I've learned a lot through our conversations, but I wasn't there. And I think that's one thing that's really important to the people watching and listening in tonight.
Right. I think we were getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, putting the cart before the horse there. So my
Oh, hard
apologies.
charging.
That's okay. That's okay.
But I'll start off. I'll share a little bit about myself. So I am a U.S. Army veteran. I served for 3 years active duty as an infantryman, and I did one tour to Afghanistan, 2010, 2011. Wasn't a cakewalk. It wasn't the worst thing, but it was a deployment, and it is something that needs to be recognized.
Brandon?
Well, I mean, I guess I'll go. I was waiting on you, but you'll wait on me. We'll just sit here and wait forever. So, Brandon Miguel, U.S. Army veteran, 3 tours in Afghanistan back in 06, 07, 08, and then 11 to 12. Kind of here today just to kind of go over and cover some of the topics we've discussed, and I'll jump more into the nitty gritty when we get into it.
Kelly Ratcliffe, also U.S. Army. Deployments, I was active duty 8.5 years. So I did Bosnia, Hungary, Korea, and then 2 tours in Iraq, 03 to 04 and 05 to 06.
All right. And one thing, you guys, that I think is really important too is to share your roles at ClearPath and what you do to help veterans every day.
So I do the peer support.
Peer support. All right. And what does that entail?
All right. Well, I was going to get into that a little bit later. Peer support, it's kind of, I mean, what it is for me, it's kind of just sharing the experiences I've had along my journey, kind of dealing with my own symptom management and, the shit going on in my life, for lack of a better way of putting it, or for probably the best way of putting it. And just kind of sharing those experiences and sharing some of the trials and tribulations I've had and what I've found to be helpful, and lending that support to others to kind of guide them along that journey and to let them know that they're not alone in what they're facing. So that's what peer support is for me, and that's what I try to do. I just try to engage my brothers and sisters and let them know that they're cared about.
Awesome.
So I am an outreach peer specialist, which I do peer support as well, but I also go out, find people, talk to people. I do a lot of work in the company to get the word out there of what we're doing and what we have available. So I do a lot of that as well, but I'm also peer support specialist. So anytime any veterans come in, or anyone that comes in, needs to talk, have that personal connection with someone, I'm right at the front desk for them.
Right. And you're also, though I hope this will change soon, you're the only female veteran on our staff.
I am, yes.
And that is something that is priceless, I think, for your perspective that you bring to the team.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. And she doesn't just sit at the front desk. She pretty much manages the whole front end of ClearPath and us getting stuff done up there. So it's a lot easier life having her around.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Keeps me on track.
Yeah. Well, kind of.
They just like me because I give them chocolate. Let's be honest.
Hey,
No,
whatever you
don't
need to do to bribe them
No,
works, right? No, I'm kidding. I know Kelly's an integral part of the team. She does a lot, and she's made a huge impression in her short time with us on staff. So that's awesome. All right. So do you want to start with our first session and kind of talk about the key takeaways that from PTS?
First, doesn't everybody want to hear about me?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, you're good.
Yes.
Nobody.
Last but not least, I'm so sorry.
It's all right. I just want to state first, though, that both Brandon and Kelly are certified peer specialists. They don't just throw the title on. They went through all the training, and they are credentialed as such. I am in program development, as it says on my business card, but business cards really don't have all the space in the world to write down everything that you're doing. I have a background in mental health, master's in clinical mental health counseling, though I'm unlicensed. And I end up doing just a lot of data and IT work as well. But it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We got a small but tight team, and we're all helping each other out all day. Um,
Jack of all trades, master of nothing.
Oh yeah, yep, pretty much.
Yeah,
It happens to the best of us. It's okay.
that's right.
All right. So do we want to start with our first week and kind of the takeaways? Where do you
Sure.
want to start?
All right, I think we're ready now. Yeah. Well, as I started off a little awkwardly, Brandon stated much better. What we're talking about today is just trauma in general, and the body's response, an individual's response. Trauma is traumatic. And though every situation may not be traumatic to everybody, everybody responds differently. Big events, big traumatic events, they have a lasting imprint, for better or for worse. And what we're talking about today is really just acknowledging that and trying to offer up some suggestions on how to mitigate the symptoms or the difficulties that you may be experiencing just with everyday life. And beyond anything, we want to normalize it because this is something that no one's immune to. And someone might have a diagnosis, someone might not, someone might claim they, nothing's ever affected them, but it's being human, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's life. Life happens. We all have things that we deal with. We all have things that make us happy. We all have things that, bring us down as well. And we got to find ways to kind of manage and cope with those bigger issues that we deal with in our lives. And, simply, we're just trying to help you out and give you some tools and some helpful advice that we found through our journey and through other people's journey, through them letting us know what they found helpful along the way. So we really hope with tonight's evening that you'll walk away just understanding that, it's okay, that, there's nothing truly wrong with you, that everybody has things that they deal with in life. And sometimes it gets a little hard to manage because we don't necessarily have the tools to manage them, or we're using the wrong tool for the wrong thing. So just bear with yourself and we'll all get through this together.
Right. And we're veterans. We work for an organization that serves veterans. And what we're talking about is specific to veterans, but this is beyond that. This is applicable to everybody. And I just needed to say that as well.
Yep.
Shazam.
All right. So when we talk about kind of I want to go to kind of our second session where we talked a little bit about trauma and the military family and kind of how it affects the family. What would you say some of the key takeaways from that? And I believe we had a guest on that show, didn't we?
We did. We had Dr. Jenny Olympia from William James College, who is a Air Force veteran, and a very, very impressive woman with a lot of knowledge and experience that I wish she was able to make it here tonight, but you're just stuck with us.
She's also a spouse too.
Yes.
No, but you know what? You brought up a great
as well. So
you brought up a great point. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of our live streams and put them on a web page in order of the series for people, so we can share that link on social. So if people want to go back to that, and I'll come back to the chat here and I'll put that link into our website.
It's totally binge worthy. You should binge it.
If there's one to circle back to, is probably the one with Dr. Olympia. She's fantastic. So be sure to give that one a watch.
But key takeaways for families. I think some of the big key takeaways is that it's not just the veterans' experience. Children and spouses are experiencing a lot of these things too. And the differences between National Guard deployment and active duty deployment and the support and resources that are in those communities, prospectively. So it's kind of taking into account on what type of deployment may be experienced during that. And just, honoring the family's kind of sacrifice too, and allowing them to have some skin in the game and kind of the, quote unquote recovery process, knowing that, your family now is your new fire team on your new mission of dealing with life and, battling the things that you're coping with. So, let your spouse share some of that burden. A lot of us veterans, we're the protectors. So a lot of times we don't share what's necessarily going on with us, what we need help with. We're only there to help our spouses. But, our spouses want to help us as well. So share with them what's going on, kind of balance those scales and allow them to have some skin in the game and go through this journey together. And, I think you'll realize that, you'll get a lot further in what you're trying to get accomplished by doing that.
Right. Brandon always mentions that the family is your new fire team, or your old fire team, however you want to look at it, your ongoing fire team. But that's exactly right. And if something affects one, it's going to affect all. So for an individual who, let's take a deployment, for example, who's gone for a year, went through some stuff and is coming back dealing with some PTS symptoms or issues surrounding that, it's going to affect way beyond that individual, and the whole family is going to be affected. And we could get off on tons of tangents about how the family is affected by just deployment life and the cycle in general, let alone reintegration, separating from the military, getting out. There's so much to it that we absolutely can't cover it all tonight. But yeah, it's all about just considering others in your family and making sure that everybody's getting the attention they need, not just the problematic individual.
Yeah, and I also think that having communication with your spouse helps with PTS, because the more we talk about it, the better, like Brandon said, the better we are. And being open with them is like opening a window, because it allows them to be open with you, and you might find things that they experienced because of it. And, opening that line of communication is key, and keeping it open is very important.
Right. And, it might be better to kind of do this a little bit out of order. Talking about communication, because one of our workshops that we talked, or one of our sessions we talked about, were communication strategies in general. And going off of the family topic, communication is key to a happy, healthy family, and to improving quality of life, especially pertaining to PTS.
Yeah,
absolutely. There's more than just not beating your wife or shaking your baby. You got to communicate as well.
Like how?
I'm sorry, man. I got to use the veteran humor. I got to break it up from and just be veteran humor. It's got to be done.
Definitely.
Yeah, you got to communicate. Besides not beating her or shaking your baby, you also got to communicate.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen and ladies.
All right. So why don't we talk about mindfulness and PTS?
Mindfulness.
We had our friend Leanne on.
You got to be mindful of it.
Yeah, you got to be mindful.
Yeah.
Mindfulness for me is really just being aware. It's kind of, it's becoming more in tune with your body. Everybody kind of reacts differently. Like for me, I can get a lot of physical sensations before I ever get that mental trigger that kind of leads into me having some type of episode or having a problem or something like that. So kind of just learning to recognize little things in my body, and then that making me more cognitive, just more mentally aware of what's going on in a particular situation, and just learning how to relax my body and learning different breathing techniques. It's kind of granola hippie-ish, but you know what? It works for me. And I kind of like, just the mindfulness approach. It makes you, a lot more aware of your surroundings. It's almost like it's that hypervigilance, but within. It's almost a way I like to put it. It's being hypervigilant, but internally.
Right. But it's all about self-awareness and being in tune with yourself. And I think one of the biggest things is being present. I don't know how many times or how many hours or days or weeks by now, years I've spent just in my head thinking about things that have happened in the past, or being angry, something like that. But it really helps bring you back to the moment. and to just appreciate all the little things that are going on that are worth appreciating. And more than anything, it's something to center you and something to ground you.
Yep. And it's okay if it's something that you may have to practice at it. You know, I've been dealing with my PTS since 2003, and I still have trouble with my mindfulness. But I work with these two great people. I always do it backwards. I work with these two great people who Brandon calls me out on it all the time. And he's like, you know, is that what's going on, or is that what you think's going on? So he helps me with my mindfulness because I'm not perfect at it. It's okay that I'm not perfect at it. I work at it. I try at it. And, you know, I'm getting better and better. So it's definitely, if it comes naturally to you and you get it every time, awesome. But don't worry if you have to work at it, because I have to work at it.
Yeah,
So
everything we're talking about, you have to work hard at. None of this shit is going to be working for everybody, and none of it's going to work right away.
Yeah. And it's pot calling the kettle black with lots of things we're telling others, or things that we need to hear ourselves. And to be honest, you know, that's kind of a lot of I mean, at least for me in particular, it's why I do a lot of what I do. You know, it's that constant reinforcement of the things that I need to be doing myself, while I try to help others do the same thing.
Yep.
Nobody's perfect, but it helps to try and practice what you preach.
Yes.
Yeah. Catch more.
All right, so let's chat a little bit about coping strategies and kind of the skills building element. We did that. We talked a little bit about that and kind of the key takeaways.
So one of the coping strategies we talked about was mindfulness itself.
Yep.
But
so, boom.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
We cope.
Yeah.
But really, it's looking at what's healthy and what's unhealthy as far as coping. Everybody has different ways they deal with stress or issues. Some of them are better than others. And looking at healthy versus unhealthy and moderation. Everybody's going to have something different that works for them. But when we're talking about unhealthy coping mechanisms, I think avoidance is probably one of the biggest ones. And that's going back to that, you know, original topic of PTS in general. Avoidance is one of the biggest key issues. That's probably the hardest thing to address. And if you just keep everything out of your mind, you know, walk away every time you see something that reminds you of it, or shut your mind off, change the topic, whatever, you're never going to address the underlying issues or the symptoms caused by them. If you're just walking away from it and turning your shoulder.
And it's going to catch you anyways. I mean, let's be real. There's only so much you can avoid something before something you trip over a little bit, you know, or the glass overflows, whatever metaphor you want to use. You know, unfortunately, you know, there's no avoiding everything in life, and you need to face and deal with some things that are uncomfortable, you know, but that's nothing that you can't handle, I believe. We've all learned how to deal with other stressful situations. And I think that if you reframe things in your mind, you can kind of use some of those tools for new approaches, you know. And the big thing is just remember to find and do things that you enjoy. You only have so much time in the day. So if you're doing things you enjoy, you will naturally be doing less things that are unenjoyable. And that's what you need to remember, you know. So it's remember to enjoy things as well, and that there are still things out there to be enjoyed.
Right.
Awesome.
And that thought went.
Yeah,
that was quick.
So,
that was fast.
Right.
That's right. That's right. So one of the other things, and it kind of all comes together, because I think there's piggyback on top of each of these topics that we've talked about. Communication, right? So we talked about healthy, productive communication, emotional expressions. In that one, is there kind of some suggestions, some key takeaways from that session that we had?
For the communication, you said?
It was communication, but emotional expression. I think that was a great piece to that session, that we talked a little bit about, kind of those emotional cues, that recognizable cues that we talked a little bit about.
Well, I think one of the really just the biggest things coming from that communication session is to acknowledge your emotions, and to verbalize them. Not necessarily verbalize them, but communicate them. And when you communicate, and talking about communicating with your family, for instance, the biggest suggestion I have is to, number one, make space for another and listen. Number two, establish some ground rules for timing out and walking away if things get heated and you can't communicate effectively and things start going down south, just making things worse. And the third one is using I statements.
Yep.
It's always better to own your feelings and own what is going on with you than to blame it on somebody else. So when I say I get hurt when Brandon's a dick, instead of saying Brandon, you're a dick.
It does get a lot of flack, and it's been made fun of in the media and everything else. That whole I statement thing with the therapists, and it really works, believe it or not, because
And it's ownership.
it is, and it really shows the other person that you're not attacking them, but you're just trying to verbalize what is wrong. So it makes other people feel less attacked, which is good.
And then understand better what you're trying to say and what's going on in your head.
Right. And when people use with someone with PTS, the same, they'll feel less attacked rather than, that confrontational argument type of thing.
And here's the thing, and I'm just going to say this regardless. Nowadays, some people are going to feel attacked regardless of what you do.
True story.
So
True.
You need to say what you have to say for you anyways. The biggest words of advice I guess I give to people is just only focus on pleasing yourself and being happy with yourself. If you try to please and make everybody else happy, you're constantly having to be a different person because you can't please or make everybody else happy in your life. If you only focus on pleasing and making yourself happy, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks at that point, because you're good with yourself and you're good with how you feel about yourself within your soul.
Yes, being true to yourself.
Yeah.
That's great advice. I have to tell you, Brandon, I've missed you because Mike needed somebody to pick on in our lab.
Yeah, man. Well, I got to pick on him too. He's just jealous because I got hair.
Yeah.
Well, see, nobody knows that because he always has a hat on, so that's his secret.
I know. No, everybody knows.
It's a real clever disguise, yeah.
It's a real clever. It's like camouflage, the digital type, ACU.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about kind of the resources for PTS and kind of some of the strategies for moving forward.
Well, again, we started out the conversation with this, but it bears repeating again. The best thing you could probably do for yourself is to try and get professional help. Work with a therapist, work with a clinician, a counselor. I strongly recommend couples counseling for anybody out there in a couple, or family counseling. I know it might not sound like the most enticing thing, but the more you involve the others in your life in trying to improve yourself, the better off you'll all be. So we have a quick little one-pager that we put together that's just kind of a snapshot and going into a little bit more detail on all of these different coping strategies, communication tips, that kind of stuff. We are going to have that up on Facebook after this event for everybody to go and retrieve, should they care to. There's a bunch of helpful websites on it. And there's also the Veteran Crisis Line number, which I recommend every veteran and everybody out there watching this right now, plug that into your phone, put that in as a contact. So if you ever need it, you have it right there and you don't have to panic, Google.
Yeah. And then the VA, obviously, everybody's got a VA around them. That's a resource. You have your local town VSO. If you live in Massachusetts, if you're in other states, there's also regional VSOs within your region. So you can contact them as far as other resources. Obviously, there's us. So if you're close to us, you can come stop by and visit ClearPath. We'll be happy to try to help you with whatever it is you want to do, or if you just want to have a conversation and go for a walk, we can we could certainly do that as well. So there's lots of resources out there, bunch of different things. You know, we could spend here all night covering them, but you know, stop by the building and visit, or check out our website. We got a bunch of them posted there as well.
Yeah, our doors are always open, and there should always be at least one dog around to come and pet and play with.
Yes.
And we have, you know, I mean, really now that restrictions are lifting, we have a lot of our programs are getting back in action, which is a great thing. So human connection is really important.
Got lots of things coming for June.
Right, and you know, speaking of the restrictions and going along COVID, one thing that we definitely want to mention is that ClearPath and Devon's, our building right now, is being utilized as a vaccination site. Currently, it's being held on Wednesdays. We're simply hosting it. We don't have anything to do with the administration or operation. But we have some information on Facebook and on our website about how to get signed up and registered to get vaccinated if you haven't yet.
Yep.
And it's also here in the chat too, friends. So you can click right on the link there as well to access it. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. You know, over the past 6 months, you've brought up some really great information. And as we kind of, I know for our friends that are watching tonight, starting next month, we'll be talking about bringing more awareness to veteran suicide and having a little bit more conversations about that, and kind of bringing, you know, bringing questions and talking really about resources that can help some of our veterans and what's going on out there. So we're really excited, and you'll be seeing these familiar faces on those lives, as well as we're also bringing in some other organizations that can help as well and be a resource to you. So thanks so much, Rick, for your kind comment. He said ClearPath is definitely an awesome place. Scott, the founder of ClearPath, awesome guy. Thank you. We think so too.
Absolutely.
He's all right.
Yeah, he's all right. When he's not being a pain in the butt sometimes, but he's okay. No. All right, friends, if you are catching the replay, please do feel free to leave us a comment or a question. We will absolutely get back to you. Please do visit us at ClearPath. ClearPathNE.org and look at all of our programs that we have. We have some great events coming up. For those of you that are on Facebook, if you go to our events tab, you'll see all of the awesome things. We have some runs coming up. We have some rides coming up. We have lots of stuff coming up. So
we got a huge 50-50 raffle coming up too. So definitely stay on the lookout for that.
That'll be launching. So we have some opportunities to earn some prizes and money and lots of good stuff. So we're really excited.
Yeah.
And if you have not been to our new building, we highly encourage you. It's absolutely beautiful, and it would not have happened without all the support of not only the ClearPath team, but our volunteers and all of the donations and sponsors that we have. So thank you for supporting us, because your donation, your time makes a big difference in the world of the veterans and the families that we support. So thank you, and thank you for watching us tonight. And sharing is caring, friends. So even if you share this live and you share it with your friends, you're making a difference in the life of a veteran and their families. So thank you. Thanks, friends. Thanks all for your time tonight. And we will talk with you all next time. Have a great night, friends.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.